Hello everyone. Today let's continue following the latest events of the God Valley arc in chapter 1.195 of the manga. 39 years ago, on the pirate island Hachinosu, the crew discovered that Don Malin and his men had been killed by someone unknown. Even worse, their beloved Shaki had been kidnapped. The news shocked both Rox and Whitebeard. The crime happened so quickly that no one knew who the culprit was. It turned out the traitor was none other than Ochaku. He had kidnapped Shaki and sold her to the government in exchange for a bounty. Her disappearance left the pirates devastated, and even Rayleigh wasn't spared from the grief. News spread fast that the former queen of Sakura, Shaki, had been abducted. Smiles around the world instantly turned to despair. Some even said the event caused the global economy to stall for weeks. As expected, Joker flew into a rage when he heard his lover had been taken. He tore the newspaper to shreds and blamed Rox for letting it happen in his own territory. Not only the captain, but Rayleigh and the rest of the crew were deeply worried for Shaki. A year later, 38 years ago, Holy Knight Figalonga Galen returned to God Valley to meet his lover. The red-haired woman, she was overjoyed to see him again and proudly showed him their two adorable sons. The knight was surprised to see that Rox and Sam were twin brothers. Since they were his children, the red-haired woman begged Galen to stay on the island with her and raise the boys together. But the vile knight immediately refused. Even if she wished to live with him, he would never settle here because, sooner or later, God Valley would vanish. He admitted he had already chosen a more suitable bride. And everything was set. If he won the tournament, he would get exactly what he wanted. Meanwhile, countless marine warships were closing in on God Valley. At that very moment, the treacherous knight drew his sword and slew the red-haired woman without hesitation. Then, using a transponder snail, he ordered the Marines to launch their plan, surrounding the entire island of God Valley. Realizing the Navy had completely surrounded them, the residents of God Valley assumed there must be a dangerous criminal hiding on the island. Fearing the worst, they decided to hurry back home and stay out of sight. In this operation, the Navy planned to use tranquilizer rounds to subdue anyone who resisted. Among the Marines was a young officer named Monkey D. Dragon, the son of Vice Admiral Garp, the man who would later become the leader of the Revolutionary Army, and the father of Luffy. Dragon asked his superior what the real objective of this mission was. But he was immediately scolded. The officer barked that this was a military drill, and Dragon had no right to question him until he had served at least 15 more years. He even reprimanded the squad leader for failing to properly discipline his men. At that moment, a civilian from God Valley tried to ask the Marines what was going on, but before he could finish, he was shot down with a tranquilizer. The rest of the townsfolk were quickly restrained as well, realizing the Navy's true target was actually the people of God Valley. The residents armed themselves and tried to flee. Dragon once again questioned his superiors, insisting they were just ordinary civilians. Why should they be treated this way? But the Marines had no say in the matter. They were only carrying out orders from above. Left with no choice, Dragon reluctantly followed orders. He drew his tranquilizer gun and began firing at anyone who resisted. On other fronts, tranquilizer bombs were thrown non-stop, and Dragon felt things were spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, on a marine prison ship bound for God Valley, slaves were being transported. Inside, Ginny had secretly broken into the communications room and leaked information about the tournament's prize to the outside world. This was the first step in her escape plan with Ivankov, and so far, it was working. The other slaves, however, dismissed their efforts as useless. If they were caught, they'd be punished and tortured even worse. Hearing this, Ivankov exploded in anger, shouting at them for having lost their will to fight. Idiots, we're all going to die anyway. We don't even know where this ship is headed. Don't fool yourselves into thinking you'll be saved without even trying to survive. Don't underestimate miracles. In another section of the ship, Kuma overheard Ivankov's words. He smiled, relieved to know there were still slaves who carried hope and spirit. Elsewhere, on a remote island facility of the Cipher Pole Intelligence Agency, a young Morgans, then the president of the World Economic Times, was present. He announced he had explosive news and demanded Cipher Pole pay him off. or he would publish the truth about God Valley. The agents threatened to eliminate him since he was just a child. But Morgans defiantly challenged them back. Go ahead and try, if you dare. Either way, my news will reach the pirate islands. Cutting back to Hachinosu, when the pirates there learned that Shaki was still alive, they were overjoyed. In contrast, Ochiku's face turned pale, and he broke into a cold sweat as the news spread. He clearly feared that his betrayal would soon be exposed, and once the others found out, they'd tear him to pieces. The crew of the Silver Axe and John were furious upon hearing that Shaki was being used as a prize for the Celestial Dragons. They quickly concluded that her kidnapper had to be the world government itself. Whitebeard, too, recalled rumors that the Celestial Dragons would often visit islands to host human hunting tournaments, but no one imagined those whispers were true until now. Meanwhile, Linlin's attention was fixed on the other prizes. She urged Kaido to join her in seizing them, already possessing a devil fruit herself. She wanted to grab powerful fruits for her children this time. Streusen warned it might be a trap, but Rox didn't care. He declared he would head to God Valley and claim everything for himself, telling any cowards to stay behind. Over with Joker's crew, Joker asked Gabon for the location of God Valley and prepared to set sail to rescue Shaki. Rayleigh and the others were thrilled, fully supporting their captain's decision. Upon hearing that Rox was also on the move, Joker swore he had to beat him there no matter what. Elsewhere, the moment Garp heard Joker's name, his expression shifted. He immediately set out for God Valley as well. From a single leaked piece of intelligence, the strongest forces on the seas were now converging on the island. On the way to God Valley, Rox's ship was blocked by the massive vessel of Hazan. Hazan had orders to stop a group of pirates who had lost their minds over a woman. Nearby, a government ship was monitoring Hazan's every move, forcing him to sink Rox's crew without hesitation. Rox, however, believed Hazan was underestimating him. Still, he wasn't looking for a fight, he wanted a private conversation instead. His calm demeanor, even with Shaki in danger, frustrated Silver Axe and Shaki, who grew impatient. During his talk with Hazan, Rox revealed a truth he had kept even from his own crew. His real name wasn't Rox, it was David Zebek. Rox and Zebek were just aliases. His bloodline, the David family, had long been hunted to near extinction by the government. Ever since the days of the legendary pirate Davy Jones, his clan had been forced to survive in the shadows. Rox admitted he didn't know whether this legacy was a blessing or a curse. But 2 years earlier, he had fathered a child. To protect his wife and child, he sent them back to his homeland with a message: place your trust in the Davy lineage. And, in a shocking twist, Rox's homeland turned out to be none other than God Valley, the very island the government was planning to wipe from existence. Hazan believed the government was trying to lure Zebek into a trap. But Zebek was certain they had no intention of letting him show up. It felt as though Zebek was being pulled into some greater destiny. The capture of Shaki had been a huge mistake by the Celestial Dragons. In truth, Zebek only pretended to head to God Valley for Shaki's sake. His wife and child were his true priority. This time, he felt fortune wasn't on his side, so he asked Hazan to join him in rescuing his family. But Hazan's face showed clear displeasure, and he swore he would sink the Rox pirates. The two men clashed fiercely on Hazan's giant ship. Yet in reality, Hazan was only putting on a show for the government. After all, he and Zebek had once been friends, and there was no reason to stop a man trying to save his wife and child. As unbelievable as it sounds, every 3 years the Celestial Dragons selected one island from among the nations not allied with the world government, usually a land rich in resources, to host a barbaric, human hunting game. On that day, the native inhabitants were massacred. During the God Valley event, after displaying several rare devil fruits as prizes, the announcer brought Shaki onto the stage and introduced her as the grand prize. Shaki, the former empress of Amazon Lily. The winner could decide whether she became his wife or his slave. Shaki appeared well kept and healthy, dressed in the garb of the Kuja tribe, having been given special care since her capture. The Celestial Dragons in the audience went wild over her beauty. Alongside Galen, Two other holy knights, Summer and Gunko, were also present. One dragon ordered Summer to win and bring Shaki into the Seferd family. But the knight refused. He had already decided Shaki would be his own slave. Galen, on the other hand, claimed he would make her his wife and advised Summer to step aside. Elsewhere, Dragon followed a trail of blood and discovered the red-haired woman and her injured children. She begged him to take her sons off the island, pleading that they must never fall into that monster's hands. At the same time, young Titi and his mother had also been captured and turned into prizes for the hunt. The announcer then delivered shocking news to the gathered celestial dragons. Besides the buccaneers, another, rare rabbit, would be part of the tournament. After 800 years, they had finally found survivors of the Davy family. The announcer paraded the remaining Davy clan members onto the stage. Seeing them, the celestial dragons erupted in fury, hurling rocks, axes, and knives while spewing vile insults at the suffering slaves. Some even accused them of being buccaneers. The announcer quickly warned the dragons to stop throwing weapons, otherwise their rare prey might die before the game began. Among the captives brought on stage were Titi and his mother. Titi's face was frozen with fear as he watched the madness of the celestial dragons, while his mother tried desperately to shield him from the objects hurled at them. Meanwhile, Saturn was astonished that Galen had tracked down the Davy family, and he muttered that this must be fate. The announcer then began introducing the favored contestants of the deadly tournament. Back with the red-haired woman and dragon, she begged him once more to raise her children with kindness and not let them fall into the hands of that cruel celestial dragon. Moments after she collapsed, Dragon rushed to find Rox and Sam Zebek. No matter whose children they were, he vowed to save them. On the other side, the announcer continued explaining the rules of the hunting game. There were a total of 13 super rare rabbits, worth 10.000 points each, while the remaining 150 were classified as rare rabbits. The hunt would begin in 1 hour. The announcer encouraged the prey to scatter and hide, hoping it would make the game more entertaining. The moment a gunshot rang out, civilians and slaves in God Valley bolted in terror, glancing back over their shoulders in fear the celestial dragons might strike at any moment. Some comforted themselves with the thought that if they could survive for 3 weeks, the celestials would spare their lives. But for now, all they could do was run. And then, the hunt began in earnest. The cold-blooded celestial dragons grabbed their guns and set out to track down their prey. One family hiding behind a rock was discovered when their babies suddenly cried. Despite the parents' desperate pleas, the dragon opened fire without mercy. Across the island, civilians begged for salvation, but their cries only fueled the sadistic excitement of the celestial dragons. In the Holy Land, other dragons watched the hunt broadcast live, cheering for their peers and the holy knights in God Valley. They screamed in delight when Galen ruthlessly cut down one rare rabbit after another, calling him dazzling and cool. At the same time, Gunko was firing arrows at slaves. Back then, she was not yet part of the Holy Knights. She joined the hunt to bring honor to her family. Meanwhile, the Marines guarding Shaki envied Galen for soon claiming such a beautiful woman. Shaki's expression was heavy with sorrow, clearly waiting for Rayleigh to come rescue her. Elsewhere, Summer was hunting down a young slave hiding in a tree. He laid a spiked trap beneath it and then kicked the trunk, forcing the child to fall. The boy begged and wept, but Summer was unmoved. When the father rushed in to save his son, both were killed at Summer's hands. Seeing civilian corpses scattered across the ground, Dragon could not hold back his tears. He felt torn with guilt, yet he knew if he tried to save anyone and defied the celestial dragons, his entire unit would be wiped out. Officially, Dragon had been ordered to guard outside the island, but out of curiosity, he had stepped into God Valley himself. Meanwhile, Ivankov was rallying the slaves when a celestial dragon spotted them. Ivankov shouted that none of them could survive this twisted game unless they worked together to escape. Watching this, Dragon was stunned to see that these people still clung to hope. At that moment, a dragon took aim at Kuma, one of the last surviving members of the Buccaneer clan. Instinctively, Dragon fired his tranquilizer gun and shot the celestial down. Elsewhere, the celestials continued their massacre of innocents. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted near the shore. The Navy quickly realized it was the arrival of the Rock's pirates. And not just them, many other pirate crews were swarming in as well. Soon after, 11 members of the Rock's crew landed on God Valley: Davy Back, Whitebeard, Stussy, Streusen, Linlin, Kaido, Shiki, Silver Axe, Gloriosa, and Captain John. Before the battle began, Rocks stood tall and made a bold declaration. There were 3 things his crew had to claim at all costs: Shaki, the treasure, and the rare devil fruits. Beyond that, he said, fighting each other was meaningless. For now, they should cooperate as one crew. And when the dust settled, the spoils would be divided among them. But his words sparked debate. Big Mom, Shiki, and Silver Axe scoffed at the idea of sharing Shaki. She would surely fall for the man who saved her. Captain John argued she would choose the one with the most treasure. Whitebeard took a calmer stance. He said he only wanted to protect Shaki as a friend, but admitted that if she chose him, he wouldn't turn her away. This statement unsettled Satori, who couldn't accept it. Meanwhile, Gloriosa thought only of saving her own contact, believing Joker would be grateful if he found out. Ochaku was the only one who stayed behind on Hachinosu, a decision that would surely shame him if Shaki returned safely. Kaido didn't care about Shaki at all. His eyes were fixed on the devil fruits, hoping Linlin would leave him one as powerful as Whitebeard's. Then the battle erupted. Marines rained down cannon fire, but it barely slowed Rock's ship. His crew smashed through the naval fleet and landed successfully. The Celestial Dragons panicked, cursing the Navy for their failure and threatening to execute every soldier if they died here. Amid the chaos, Dragon grabbed the twin children and fled, sighing in relief when he saw they were still unharmed. The Marines rushed to escort the Celestials deeper into the island, while terrified soldiers whispered if this might be the end of the world. At the same time, the Roger pirates made landfall. Joker shouted that he would rescue Shaki while the rest looted the treasure, claiming none of them had a chance with her. But Gabon tripped him face first into the ground, and the crew stomped over their greedy captain, racing ahead to claim Shaki themselves. Elsewhere, the Holy Knights gathered. Galen declared the hunt was over, but the Celestial Dragons shouted angrily, demanding their entertainment continue. Galen ordered the Marines to withdraw and protect the dragons, leaving the fighting to the Knights. Outside, pirates swarmed from every direction, forcing the Navy to fire back. Inside, Whitebeard and Shiki tore through Marine soldiers, their power unmatched. Then, at the height of chaos, Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp arrived, holding a massive cannon in his hands. Watching his men being slaughtered, he hurled the weapon at the pirates, unleashing a colossal explosion that shook the battlefield. The blast made both Rocks and Roger glance back in surprise. The Marines erupted in cheers, overjoyed to see their Vice Admiral, believing they were saved at last. And so, the legends were finally gathered in one place. The greatest all-out clash of the God Valley incident was about to begin.